I want to discuss a little bit more some of the reactions we've seen to the second assassination attempt against Donald Trump. We covered inappropriate remarks on either side to this. Of course, the correct response being that political violence against anyone or planned violence, including someone such as Trump, is wrong, and we oppose it. It has been really disturbing to me to see, again, the way MAGA is choosing to react to this. And in this example, I have for you Eric Trump. And I'm just really frightened by how many are choosing to, this I know is a term some are going to be unhappy with, but exploit what is a bad thing that needs to be prevented for political purposes. And that's what we're seeing. Here's Eric Trump on Fox News.
Well, Sean, my reaction is it feels like deja vu. It feels like 5 weeks ago you and I are having the exact same conversations we're having today. You know, let me just be very clear. They are trying to kill the man. They are trying to kill my father. They are trying to kill the 45th president of the United States. That man right there, that man is a hero to so many Americans. This is a guy who saved this country. This is a guy who spent the last decade fighting tooth and nail under the most unthinkable attacks to save the country, against his own comfort, against his own, family's interest, against his business issue. They tried to take him down. They tried to throw him in jail. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to separate his family. They tried to take him off the ballot and subvert democracy in this country. They've done everything they could. They tried to impeach him. They took down his friends. They did everything. Yet that man right there is still fighting. And I expect him to be protected. I expect him to be safe. This country expects to have democracy. And then I get to hear Kamala Harris at a debate say that man right there, who's the most brave person I've ever met, is a threat to democracy. Sean, the bullets are only going one way. It's really interesting how that works. Why is it that man right there is taking every bullet literally and figuratively? He's taken every bullet from a weaponized system. He's taken every bullet from a gun. And guess what? The media sweeps it under the rug. I heard an interesting statement the other day. It was actually a meme the other day on social media that the Will Smith slap got more attention than Butler, Pennsylvania. And I think that's close to being true because the mainstream media swept it under the rug as quickly as they could.
What does that mean? Let's explore everything that he said there. We'll start with the last part. What does that mean? Swept it under the rug. There was 24/7 surround sound coverage after the Butler assassination attempt about it. Justifiably so. Across mainstream outlets. For days. It shifted to the RNC, which you probably wanted because the RNC also talked a lot about that and other things, and it was the Republican Party's time to shine during the RNC. And then once the President of the United States said, I'm not running anymore, and I endorse my vice president to be the nominee instead, yeah, the news cycle shifted a lot, but that kind of makes sense. It wasn't sweeping it under the rug. It wasn't some conspiracy to prevent people from hearing about it, given that everyone heard about it. And of course, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, excuse me. If everyone who watches the show who's not subscribed, just today, just the viewers today who aren't subscribed, who we're going to watch, click the subscribe button today, we'd hit 1 million subscribers. Pretty crazy based on the analytics. Do it. Thank you so much. Back to the video. But then he did this quote unquote they thing. They tried to keep him off the ballot. They tried to steal the election. They impeached him. They want to throw him in prison. They are prosecuting him, and now they tried to kill him. If you really wanted to lower the temperature, as some say their goal is, to be more mindful of how rhetoric impacts lunatics, then that type of grouping of every one of your political opponents who, through totally legitimate means, is opposing your father, grouping them with lunatics with guns that we don't think they should even be allowed to have. One guy who wasn't politically motivated and was looking for Democrats too, the other guy who was politically motivated and a lunatic and does not abide by our values, which are for our democratic process, solving our political differences. To group that all together, you get to dangerous territory because you're telling your followers that someone who wanted to kill your father is the same as someone who prosecuted him after going to a grand jury and getting an indictment signed off on and all that. And that gets really dangerous real fast. Then you have this talking point of the bullets are only flying one way. There have been plots that were prevented, assassination plots against, for example, Biden during his time on the campaign trail. I don't like getting into a crude, gross conversation about comparing how many or how far. Obviously, got way too far with Trump. Absolutely, I agree. Secret Service should be doing better. More resources should be given to that. And also, hundreds of people violently tried to get to politicians on January 6th more directly because of the rhetoric of your father than rhetoric you could point to because of Harris. Hang Mike Pence, they were chanting. Police officers ended up dying. One of Trump's supporters ended up dying that day. So I don't know if you just want to get into a general debate about how much violence is going in either direction. How about we just don't want violence going in either direction? And that's why people with my values don't mock the attack on your father, while Trump does mock the attack on, for example, Paul Pelosi. So I'm disturbed by the willingness to just jump right back into the exploitation of this for dangerous talking points, but here's more.
And moved on to their next shiny ball to try and promote either Joe Biden at the time or Kamala Harris, which they do every single time. I mean, why is this person literally the punching bag for absolutely everything? And then you hear Kamala coming out and saying, yes, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. The only threat to democracy is the people who are trying to kill that incredible man right there. Again, somebody loved by the entire country. And they've got to tone down that rhetoric. The whole, Joe Biden, we're going to put a bullseye on Donald Trump. That has to end. The Maxine Waters comments, they have to end. The mainstream media who goes after him every single day, it has to end.
So some of those remarks, like a bullseye thing, or I'm sure there are examples of rhetoric that I would oppose and people go too far with. But the big thesis, instead of saying, let's have political discourse, let's accurately discuss the facts of a particular election, and let's all be clear that regardless of how escalated that debate gets, the solution is not violence. We advocate, we protect democracy through democracy. Instead of that, you are, and this is upsetting, you are hearing an argument from MAGA that lunatics doing things that we oppose means we can't accurately describe why Trump, in our opinion, should lose the election. What? Or you have people like J.D. Vance saying the reason this is happening is because we call Trump fascist. But
look, we can disagree with one another, we can debate one another, but we cannot tell the American people that one candidate is a fascist.
Kamala Harris is the first major party nominee in American history who fundamentally rejects freedom and embraces Marxism, communism, and fascism. There's a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist. She's a fascist. These are fascists, they're communists, they're Marxists, they're radical left Democrats. They're sick people. We're living in a fascist state. Those are fascists, by the way. Those are the people that are a danger to the country. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists.
you get the point. It feels like you're articulating a double standard. Doesn't feel like you are articulating a double standard. To Eric Trump, I'm sorry, and I sympathize with the fact that your dad has had extremely scary moments, but why you're choosing to take those and push just dishonest ideas, I don't know. It's beyond me. I thought Liz Cheney had a really good response to this.
This weekend, we had another attempted assassination, at least that's what investigators are calling it, against former President Trump. This morning, he blamed rhetoric from President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. He said, quote, "Their rhetoric is causing me to be shot at." Do you worry that you guys are adding to the already divisive environment that we are in, Congresswoman?
I think that there's no question that violence has no place in our politics. And That is not a partisan issue. Violence should have no place in American politics. But I think that what President Trump said this morning has it exactly backwards. When you look at what he did when he lost the last election, when you look at his attempts to seize power, when you look at the fact that he watched, people need to know this, he watched television while police officers were being brutally beaten at the Capitol, while the Capitol was being attacked and invaded, and as his own family pleaded with him to tell the mob to stop the violence that was being carried on in his name. So he is a threat to democracy. There's no question. The answer to that is to defeat him at the ballot box, to defeat him in the election. And I think it's important for people to understand.
I come back to, I know for some of you this feels like I'm just beating the same drum over and over. And probably I am a little bit, because you get the point, you understand. I don't have a bunch of MAGA people in my audience, so it's not like they're going to be convinced. But for me, maybe some of this is just therapeutic, because in preparation for the show, I'm consuming so much online content. And it's so many right-wingers on my feed. And because I have a hard time assuming ill will, and I like to assume that people are coming at things that, in good faith, I want to be able to appeal to someone who genuinely feels in their heart of hearts that Harris is to blame for this, or really feels like the movement that Harris right now is at the top of condones, supports, or is more to blame for political violence and division. And so then it makes me just want to say, as I did already in a different segment, how do you describe what Liz Cheney just described? In other words, a danger to democracy, but you probably wouldn't like that either. No respect for democracy. What do you call someone who said a massive fraud of this type magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution? I didn't say that. Harris didn't say that. My audience didn't say that. Trump said that. So it's not our fault when we point to that and go, that's not someone who respects the Constitution. Thus, danger to democracy, threat to democracy. And him endangering democracy means that we defeat him through democracy, which is why we oppose violence so much. But I want MAGA to explain, you're so angry. I'm seeing the DMs at me and at other people for describing him that way and thinking that's what's causing this. And so my question to you is, how else, given the behavior of Trump when he tried to prevent himself from leaving office, even though that's what the American people wanted, who has promised to use the DOJ, unlike Biden, despite your claims to the contrary, use his attorney general and thus the DOJ to go after those, to do to them what he falsely states is being done to him. What do you call that? And after grappling with that for some time, because y'all know me, I am a sensitive guy, sometimes a little too much so, which makes me, when I see people so angry about this and blaming in the way that they are, it makes me want to critically engage with it. Okay, wait, could we do, because y'all clearly have a lot you could be doing better. You just saw the compilation. If you think fascists shouldn't be used, JD, ask your boss to do that as well. But I can't control you. I can control myself. So is there something we could be doing better? Because things are getting really divided. And I just don't know how you correctly, which is our responsibility, describe the behavior and rhetoric of Trump without saying, yeah, this guy has no respect for democracy. Obviously, that's what we've seen. And the fact that you ignore that is really crazy. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. I know it can be a touchy subject, but it's an important one. And we have to get to the core of some of these things. You can get election-themed merch. We've been plugging it. It's very exciting. At LukeBeasleyMerch.com.